What's good, everybody? Back once again, and this time over here talking about this Marvel Secret Invasion. It just wrapped up. It's done. I was like, I wasn't gonna do a episode by episode. That's too much. I was like, I'm just waiting for the conclusion. It's done. It's over, and here we are. I guess initial thoughts after it's being done is that the whole time, hey, it wasn't bad. I was like, I don't think it's bad that everybody else think it's bad. The low viewership, I think that's somewhat of the fact that since Marvel sort of been in a little bit of a downward, then look, I haven't watched. I started watching somewhat of Moon Knight. I never touched Miss Marvel, and I haven't touched She-Hulk. And I was like, I'll watch them eventually, but. And I was like, I watched like Hawkeye and I watched Loki, WandaVision, all the other stuff, and I was like, I think this is probably the third or fourth best show if I exclude those. So it's a little incomplete of how I'm doing that thing, but I didn't think it was bad, but I feel like if this was the show that everybody was counting on to sort of turn you back up, being like, yo, Marvel back. I was like, that's what we needed. I was like, this wasn't it. And it sort of sucks because it's like, especially after Guardian 3 was really well, and I know that we're sort of doing a little bit of like Guardians is his own little lane, kind of with James Gunn. So we're sort of saying like Secret Invasion with Ant-Man, which I didn't have a problem with Ant-Man as a movie, but as a Marvel movie. And that's sort of how I'm doing a lot of this. Like, I'm like, Secret Invasion, if it was just a show, was like, fine. I don't think it'll get a season 2. It should get a season 2. But I don't know if it would. You get what, like some of these things, I'm like, what we all probably had envisioned for Secret Invasion, what you could do with Secret Invasion, it's like, yo, I'm gonna need that season 2. But then how things played out, it's kind of like, I'm fine. I'm good. I was like, it was really off considering like a little bit of that, like not necessarily the acting, because I think everybody did a good job of acting. I was like, I like Samuel L. Jackson with this Nick Fury and the way he was sort of like his a range of like motions and playing it like because he's kind of old in this whole thing. So. And I thought the characters the actors that were playing the characters were fine. It was sort of a little bit of the characters. It was sort of a little bit of like, it sort of makes me also think of like Multiverse of Madness. How we had big ideas about Multiverse of Madness. And then when it came around to it, it was like, oh, I mean, it's a good movie. It's okay. Like, I was like, I mean. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, unlike Multiverse of Madness, the whole thing with like, I felt like that was like more so like, oh snap, they can go this multiverse, this multiverse, this multiverse. We can see the character, and all this other stuff, and it didn't happen. Now we might get that in Deadpool 3, which is another different subject. But the thing with Secret Invasion is that there wasn't the same. It wasn't the same thing of like cameos, more so what you could do with the scroll, and I felt that's where they didn't do anything with that. Like I was like, Rhodey being a Skrull was one of them things that was, I was like, oh, okay, cool. So they did it, but it's something that like I felt like that's been like the thought process. I think I want to say before Endgame. I guess like I feel like even before we knew Skrulls came in Captain Marvel, I remember people doing videos of like what could they do in the MCU. People were like Secret Invasion, and it was like who could be a Skrull type of thing. And I remember that it was like Rhodey, because it's one of them things where it's like you wasn't gonna really pick out one of your main Avengers, and then sort of the next sort of level of like them, you wasn't gonna do that either with like Danvers or Black Panther, nothing like that. So it's like, okay, cool, who is side character? But then it was like it's really only one. First of all, I thought it'd been hilarious if they would have sort of just been like, he'd been a Skrull because, ever since Iron Man 1, he'd been different. That would have been hilariously funny. That would have been fun. That would have been my thing I would have liked. But of course, you couldn't actually do that, but it'd been funny. That sounded like something that somebody should do with a parody or something like that. But he wasn't really a surprise. I don't think it was really done in a way that was like for the audience nor for the people on the show either. It was just sort of like, oh, okay, cool. No, I was like, it's like after the first episode, I thought it had really good potential. Where it was like, okay, cool. Uh, the dude changed Nick Fury and he shot Maria Hill, and that started the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's good. That's where we're at. He never turned into Nick Fury again, which I guess you don't have to once he's sort of tarnished already. But I'm like, he didn't know. Nobody didn't really turn into anybody worth a damn after that. Like Ross being like that being a Skrull, that was sort of cool. Like I was like, it was a little bit. Cause I was like, that one sort of got you. Maria Hill dying, I was like, okay, cool. Then after that, it was sort of like, I was like people were dying left and right, but it's one of them things that it's like you needed more episodes, but then it's like, do you want more episodes that are going to be like this? Because like when everybody turned on Gravik, it was sort of like it felt rushed. It felt like, it felt like you felt like the shortness of episode where it's like, okay, cool, we have to already make sure that he fails at something that makes his troops and his tribe doesn't want to vibe with him. Oh, bars. But it just happened so fast that it was just kind of like, okay. Then there was like it was like, how everybody makes fun of the first, well, not the first, the three prequels of Star Wars where they're just like, man, there's so much talking. I felt like this was sort of this, where it was like, it was so much talking and it didn't lead to anything. There was nothing there that was like the talking made it worth something, or you felt like the tensions or something that had to be. I was like, I was like, this is sort of like what was going to feel like happen in general with the Marvel things, where like they got out the way real quickly of like, there's no reason, like I'm not calling the Avengers. Like, cool, we get that out the way, or people were like, why don't you call this person this? Okay, cool, he's not calling the Avengers. But then it's like something like, we never seen Rhodey in the War Machine armor, which I mean, I guess maybe because of like the TV show, so the budget stuff, but we never seen that be implemented, or anybody being like, hey, Rhodey, you should go ahead and go take them out yourself, or I'll handle this, I got this type of thing. That didn't happen. I was like, the thing, I was like, his daughter was kind of, I was like, so the ending for me, that's sort of what's just on my mind. I was like, the ending for me felt like WandaVision ending, where it would just like a whole bunch of just like, it's like, it's not that it's a CGI fight that's wrong, it's the way that the fight goes that is kind of like, it really just seemed like a clunky mess. It seemed like it would have been good instead of getting like all those powers, that it was just like something that's like, you got two powers and it's like randomized, and you don't know, they wouldn't know until they started fighting. So like Gravik could just end up getting like, say he got Thanos, and he had Black Panther, but then she got Carl Danvers and she got Mantis. Then it'd be like, all right, cool, let's see how this fight goes, because it's like, I mean, you would think that, I was like, I mean, she's obviously gonna win, but with Captain Marvel powers, she should be able to pretty much. But he got Thanos on the other side, so he could even that out. But I'm like, you could have made it compelling like that, where it's like, okay, cool, they got everybody powered, and then they just knew how to use them. I get Gravik being able to do it a little bit more than she is, but it just happened like quickly. And also too, that it's like, okay, so they're fighting like this, and she just somehow just started beating Gravik. That was sort of odd. That it was just like, it was like anime. Protagonist wins plot. Because like she better go to sleep. He fell, but he got back up, started blasting her, and then like she changed, and then it was just like ghost powers, and it was just kind of like, and I'm like, oh, y'all both got the same powers. Like, why is he not adapting? You know, I'm like, so I'm like, this guy who had this like plan, and you know made him like be like a fearsome leader and like very smart. At the end, he just sort of got dumb, and then towards the and like at the end, I'm like, she just beats him, and it made me think of like the Brawley movies, the old ones back in the day, where it was just like, how did Goku win? Because, oh, all right, cool. How did Gohan win? Because, like, they didn't really like you know like in that, I was like, if anybody's ever seen it in that Dragon Ball Z movie, I'm like, all he did, like, he was already using the same power he was already using. He just sort of like blasted him with a punch of kind of, you know, friendship. But it was like, this was not friendship, obviously, but it was just like got him, blast, he's done. And I was like, that was so easy for somebody that's got all the same powers as you. And it's like, why couldn't he, like, why didn't he change his body into like, you know, like Thanos, who can take on Captain Marvel powers and stuff like that, or he didn't, you know, become Ebony Maw again, and I don't know, he didn't become Carol Danvers and just take the power of, I don't know. I was like, Thor. I mean, like, you could have did anything and probably survived that blast, but you know, over. I like I'm surprised at the way that I guess the president acted. Maybe in my head I'm like, if that would have happened midway through the movie, then I think they would have been made a little bit more sense. Sort of weird now that I'm like, you know, I was like, I'm like, so after he had to get proven that Rhodey was a Skrull, which really didn't get proven, it was really just they shot him, which I'm sort of like, y'all should have just did that in the beginning. If you were just gonna shoot him anyway, just shoot him, and it could have done away with all this. But I'm like, okay, cool. So, but I'm like, I was like, you had soldiers that was at that battle. I was like, obviously, you know, I'm like, you got enough people here where you could be like, okay, cool, we know who the bad Skrulls is, we don't know who the good news Skrulls is. They could have did something like the Sokovia Accords, where the government has, like, you know, like, you want to be perceived as a good Skrull, then you will follow all your stuff down and all the other stuff, we could follow you that way. Whereas if you're not, then obviously you wouldn't go on there. Maybe you just want to be like off the grid. But I was like, to me, that could have been a better way of just being like, we're gonna find all you off-world beings and we're gonna take you out. And I'm also like, so if Thor comes down, technically he's an off-world being. Is he going to be attacked? Is he the one? You know, I'm like, Groot or Rocket. I like Star-Lord's half. I mean, I don't know how that counts. You know, that's a tricky situation, I guess. Yeah, no, I was like, so that it felt rushed but and slow at the same time. It's almost like a day at work. Like you, like, the job that you're doing right at this minute seems like it's taking forever. And then as you sort of get done with that job and you move to like another thing, or a certain time hits, then all of a sudden time then starts to go by fast once you're like past the halfway part of your day or something like that. That's what it felt like, where it was like the first like 3-4 episodes was just like, oh, okay, cool, talking. Then the last 2 was like, all right, we're done. And it's like, whoa, I was like, man, you sort of was building all these people up to just drop them. Also, I was like, if I did not say this, I would not understand how I would not. Yo, Fury out here clapping some Skrull's cheeks? No, oh, wait, hold on. I said squirrel cheeks. I meant Skrull cheeks. There we go. Woo, I was like, get that Q and then K. Yo, anyway. Yo, Fury out here clapping some of them green cheeks. Like, I like, that's what I sort of need more of. I sort of needed more of that in a different way they did. Like, I felt like it would have been if like the reveal that he was like he's messing with a Skrull. I'm like, oh snap, okay, cool. I like how that would have played into the dynamics of everything. Like I felt like they didn't have really the thing. It was about Skrull, but I didn't feel like it had Skrull dynamics. Like like there wasn't enough of them really shape shifting. The ones that did shape shift and the leaders didn't really do anything. Like they was only there for that round table. The thing that was sort of like the Tucker Carlson show or whatever, that didn't really play into anything. Yeah, so it was like it's like there's these Skrulls in these positions, but nothing's being said or done in a way that's like that's like really anything to tell us like the Skrulls are here. Jesus, I'm gonna have to fix that. The Skrulls are here. I'm keeping all that in. I was like, non-edited, whatever. We all make mistakes, but I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm like, we didn't try to like in Endgame when it was like going through and it was like 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 in the trailer where it was sort of like popping up of like, is this person missing? Is this person missing? Is this person missing? And you like, yo, who's missing? Who's not? Who's missing? I felt like we should have more of that, but we really didn't. Like everybody being in the little bunker or whatever it was. I mean, like, so it's like cool. The only two that we took. I mean, granted, if this plays off in the future things, maybe that's better or whatever. Maybe we'll look at Secret Invasion a little bit differently in hindsight. Like some people did, like I think like with Miss Marvel, like afterwards, people went to go watch it. And it was like, oh, it's actually pretty good compared to at the time that it was. But then again, I like considering it was a Nick Fury story and the way the story was. I was like, nah, this probably is this in itself show. Like if it was Secret Invasion and it was like Skrulls and it was like I was like it would involve Nick Fury, but it was Skrull centric instead of Fury centric. Maybe so, but it being Fury centric, and I don't even think they really. I like the reign that they did with Fury, but I don't think they really did anything with Fury, to be honest. Like I don't think there was anything here that made you think of like, oh snap, Nick Fury from the first Avengers where he over here and he's like being secretive and got secrets, or Winter Soldier, or where it was nothing. It was not that type of Nick Fury here. It seemed like it was old man Fury, but it just seemed like he was just old man. He wasn't doing anything or having to compensate for like him really being old. I felt like either like where it's like like, oh, okay, cool with this. He's like he didn't even seem as like on it, and I was like, I guess maybe that's the point of the show that he doesn't got anymore, like Maria Hill was saying. But I was like, but it's like okay, cool. You can't move as fast, but I'm like anymore, and he's not. I'm like maybe that he's like smarter with it or whatever, or something like that. All the time of being up there in sword, I was like, you don't have nothing. Nothing really came in the hand of like like when he went to get the harvest and he like put on his old gear. Yeah, nothing really didn't really come of that either, because he hit a couple people with tranquilizer darts, and then he just popped up there, and it was like, okay, cool, you didn't really do anything significant. Jesus, am I talking my way down of like what I gave the rating? Yeah, I was like, I was like, I don't know. That's just from my point of view. It was okay. I was like, obviously, since I watched this one compared to like the other ones I watched or didn't watch, shows you that I was like a lot more invested in this one, or wanting to be more invested in this one, and it sort of just like, it's okay. I was like, man, it just feels like, man, maybe I am talking myself out of that. It's like I went from good to like, it's fine. I don't even know. I'm like, okay, but I'm like, it's fine. It's a little better than mid. Cause I was like, mid is just average. Well, I was like, but we say mid as a negative when I'm like, no, it could be worse. There could be worse things than mid. I mean, nothing, but I was like, there could be worse things than mid. I was like, some shit. Some people probably actually prefer nothing. Yeah, I think it just had a lot more potential in the show. You could have showed Skrulls, or you could have showed Skrulls, or being like, you know, like seeing them impact other parts of the like the timeline or something like that. Even it wasn't main characters, but just like, you know, like who gave that order, and you just realize like, oh, it was a Skrull. They've been planning it for like 5 years or something like that. Or it's like ever since the blip, they've been. I was like, they ramped everything up. Like we didn't even really address the blip. The blip. We barely addressed it with Fury and Talos and his Skrull Queen. You know, I was like Skrull Queen. Uh, but I was like, but we didn't at all address it with like the Skrulls, and that's sort of weird. That I'm like he Thanos did that to everybody, so that means that they should be affected as well, and we don't get nothing of that either. That's kind of like, you know, it's just kind of like, did it happen? Did it even bother y'all? Like, how were y'all? That's when y'all started doing the takeover. That when it was even take the bodies. I was like, is this why it's only these certain people? You know, it's because that after you, like, say you did it after Endgame. I mean, not after Endgame. Say you started it during, like, before Infinity War, and it was like, or around that time, but there wasn't that many like heroes to take. They've already been blipped and stuff, so it's like you can't really take when there's only like the 5 anyway. You know, so I'm like, you could have had that. I'm like involved. Like I'm like, they've been doing a lot of like, except for like Winter Soldier or whatever, that sort of did it. Nobody's really talked about the blip. And I'm like, that seemed like really something significant. Like it's not something you got to hound on, but it seems like it's something significant. Um, yeah. Anyway, it was an okay show. I might do another follow up on this. Like there's some other stuff that uh, that might come to mind. Also, too, I was like the thing everybody throwing out about Rhodey and whatnot, and also like how this show gonna work. So the other show, I don't know. I was like, well, we're gonna see. It's still fresh and new. See how everybody reacts to it, which is kind of like, but yeah, no, it was it. I thought it was a good. I think the tone was good. I think the people doing their parts was good. I think it was just like, what are they doing? That wasn't a lot of time in the story. The writing and stuff was kind of just like, it was fine, it was whatever. It wasn't nothing that was like, oh snap, that was good. It was just like, okay, cool. But with a show like this, it's not more so about that sort of dialogue, unless the dialogue is also connecting with something that you're going to show me that was like, that's like, oh, this like, because I was like, it's a spy thing, so I'm like, if you're doing, you're not, they haven't done any spy thing either talking or showing either, so it's kind of like, but anyway, if you liked any of this or in my recap or if anything, I was like, maybe I saved you pretty much. I was like, the thought of even watching it, I was like, there's me. There's probably other better people that's like, oh, we got this whole thing in 5 minutes. But woo, I was like, I don't know what that was. Anyway, y'all getting everything on camera. But anyway, if you liked anything I had to say here, I appreciate it. Thanks. If not, hey, maybe next time. But until then, peace. I'm out. I guess also like and subscribe or whatever.